Good. Give it a roll.
All right, we're live.
Oh, rush.
Okay, I would like to call the annual meeting of the IDA to order. At this time, the slate of officers that has been presented from the executive committee are O'Brien, Vice Chairman Craig Leggett, Secretary Treasurer Brian Campbell.
Secretary Treasurer is Bill.
Oh, sorry.
We look a lot alike.
Sorry,
so I
I
understand
heard that
the,
one, sorry.
boy, are you good.
Mike Biddle, I apologize. Sorry about that.
You are good looking.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Is there a motion to approve that? Officers?
Move it.
Nick, is there a second? Mike? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carry.
Did you, by any chance, remember to take the roll before you had vote?
No,
Do we have a quorum?
you do have a quorum.
Okay.
We'll let the
Well,
record
declare
reflect
we
that
have-
there's a
well,
quorum.
declare we have a quorum.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, there is a quorum.
Adjourn?
No,
And
we just still got more business after this.
so,
More business being the meeting after this.
yeah, so are you gonna
Okay.
handle from here?
If you assist.
Appoint your,
Now we'll do roll call.
Would you please do roll call?
Good job.
Craig Leggett.
Here.
Michael Biddle.
Here.
Bruce Ferguson.
Here.
Nick Caimano.
Here.
Mike Wild.
Here.
Brian Campbell.
Here.
Dave O'Brien.
Here.
Dan Bruno.
Here.
So we have a quorum. So I'm looking for, it's my appointment to appoint the at-large members of the executive committee. I will appoint from, remember we changed the bylaws, we'll have one from each county now. So it'll be easier to make a quorum at meetings. So one appointment from Washington County will be Brian Campbell. The other appointment will be Mike Wild from Warren County.
Aren't I on the executive committee anyway?
They are now. I still have to appoint.
Oh.
No, you have to be reappointed every year. I didn't know he was going to be on. I would also like to appoint the CEO, CFO. That'd be Lester Losa from Fort Edward. So those are my appointments. I also need to make committee appointments. I appoint the executive committee is the executive committee will consist of the executive committee, nominating committee, governance committee, our same as IDA. The audit and finance committee will be Mr. Biddle, Jenny Sullivan, Mike Wild, and how did I get on here too? Chair. Audit and finance committee. Appointment of consultants newspapers. I will need a motion to appoint our corporate counsel of Fitzgerald, Morris, Baker, Firth, PC. Do I have such a motion? Motion by Mr. Biddle, second by Mr. Wild. All in favor?
Aye.
I have a motion to take the corporation's official newspaper as a Post-Star. Do I have that motion? Motion by Brian, second by Mr. Wild.
Question.
Yes.
Does the, with the IDA, does the official paper have to be a daily?
Never knew that.
I'm sorry?
I don't know, but it is really the only paper that is
Read in both counties.
read,
That's the big
distributed in both
problem.
counties.
And is there something about subscription or how delivery is made, things like that come into play for an official newspaper? Do you
I'll
know?
defer to council.
no, you mean how the actual newspaper delivers its?
Yeah, there's some little tweak on it versus, say, the
A weekly.
Adirondack Sun, which, or the Chronicle, which is widely distributed, but somehow they're not, for some reason, applicable.
I mean, I can confirm what the specifics are, but I think it's usually the basic general circulation within in the area.
What's up?
Aren't they every day?
Who?
Poster.
Post-Star, yes.
so
There-
far.
I read about
It may-
Nick, I read about Nick every day.
No, there's a good possibility that will change and soon.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that what we have in our records is the right thing to do.
Until such things as changes,
That's the point.
okay. So a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Our official depository is Glens Falls National Bank. I'll accept the motion to accept the Glens Falls National Bank as a depository. Motion by Brian, second by Mr. Biddle. You were sent all the policies to review.
You want to vote on that?
Yes, we will have to ratify the policies. Has
No, I
anyone-
mean to vote on the.
Oh, the vote on the Glens Falls National Bank. Can I have all in favor of the Glens Falls National Bank?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. PAAA matters. We need to ratify our policies. We have made changes to our bylaws. There's a couple of the minor changes, but for the most part, you were emailed out links to them to review. So having said that, was there anyone that needed changes or alterations to the policies?
There's, no.
I will then entertain a motion to accept policies as as sent out. Motion by Nick, do I have a second, Brian? Do I have any other legal business that will become before the agency?
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I just looked and saw I had the wrong, but it was all the same thing. Okay, I will now look after the annual meeting. Oh, that's for the board meeting, got that. So now we have to do the same thing for the CDC election.
To adjourn.
Do we have to adjourn?
We can adjourn, yes. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Brian, second by Mr. Biddle, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Over.
Kara, can you do CDC now, please?
Sure. I'd like to call the annual meeting of the Warren Washington Civic Development Corporation to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
Wow, she's a quick learner.
Okay.
Yes.
Craig Leggett,
Here.
Michael Biddle,
Here.
Bruce Ferguson, Nick Caimano,
Go.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno.
Here.
Brian Campbell,
Here.
Dave O'Brien.
Here.
Okay, let the record show that there's a quorum in attendance here at the meeting. The following slate of officers has been presented. Chairman Dave O'Brien, Vice Chairman Craig Leggett, Secretary Treasurer Michael Biddle. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Is there a motion to approve that slate of officers?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. I present to you the chairman.
Okay. We have to go through the same process with the CDC. At-large members of the executive committee are appointed as Mike Wild and Brian Campbell as the same. Lester Losaw is appointed CEO, CFO of the corporation. Committees and appointments, the Audit and Finance Committee is the same. Mr. Biddle, Ginny Sullivan, Mike Wild, and the chair. Executive and Park Committee are the same committees, which is the 3 officers plus the 2 at-larges. Nominating and Governance Committee is the same as executive, and we need to appoint our council of Gerald. Take motion to appoint our current council.
Someone.
Motion by Craig Leggett, second by Mr. Campbell. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Motion to appoint our official newspaper, the Post-Star,
So moved.
with Nick's caveat. Motion by Craig Leggett, second by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agency's official depository is Glens Falls National Bank. Motion approved. Mike Wild, do I have a second?
So moved. Second.
Mike Wild, Craig Leggett. All in favor?
Aye.
Again, we have to ratify all the policies. Motion by Nick to ratify the policies. Do I have a second? Brian Campbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So is there any other business to come before the CDC? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Nick, second by Mr. Wild. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So thank you. Now we have to wait till 4:00.
Recess.
Next time we gotta remember we do it at 3:15.
3:45.
3:45. So I went at 3:15, we go out and get a beer and come back.
It sounds like you might have already had one.
No, I wish. I wish.
Pretty soon we're driving across Washington County.
And all around.
He came down from.
So did you have to stop that for the interview?
He had a designated driver.
I brought it with me.
No, but consider,
Shut the mic off
shut my thoughts.
and then.
For the annual meeting, for the regular meeting. I wanted to note that because of the way our live streaming video runs, that we need to leave it running. There will be a pause until we start at 4:00 with our regular meeting. So thank you very much for understanding. Warren, Washington County IDA order. So there'll be a little change in the order we're going to proceed in. We have someone come to present a contract for purchase of a lot. We'll get to that in a minute, Jack, and then we'll go to another subject that's going to be discussed tonight. So I will go through things that I have to do first. Ally, would you please call the roll?
Craig Leggett,
Here.
Michael Biddle,
Here.
Bruce Ferguson, Nick Caimano,
Here.
Mike Wild,
Here.
Dan Bruno,
Here.
Brian Campbell,
Here.
Dave O'Brien,
Here. And we have a quorum. I need a motion to accept the approval of the minutes as mailed out. Motion by Nick, second by Mr. Leggett. Any corrections, omissions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I've also noticed that we have a list of payables. I will need a motion to accept the payables, to pay the payables.
Actually, if I can interrupt for 1 second, I would like to make a quick change on one of those payables. I received a bill today that I did not add to the agenda, but I did print it out. It was for Dave O'Brien for $71.58 to purchase cables to connect the sound for the live streaming to the system in the rooms. So the live streaming has better hearing.
$71.58, $71.
$71.58.
I'd rather than the
Got it
other.
today, so it's not, the agenda had already been printed out.
Okay.
So any
that's
questions
in-
on the payables? That's in there, yes,
That's in addition to the 54.
that's correct.
Yes.
That was also for cables for this thing. We need different cable for here and there. And I got the cable for the other place and not this place yet, so they're coming. Any questions on payables? Motion to accept the payables
Are we amending
as
them?
amended.
We probably have to amend the payables.
Mhm.
So I'll make a motion and then we'll have to go to the amendment and
Yeah.
do it full circle.
Motion. Brian, second by Mr. Biddle.
Okay, I'll amend it to add the $71.58.
Okay. So
You need a second?
I need a second.
No.
Second by Nick. All in favor?
Aye.
Back to the original motion. Need a roll call vote to vote on it as amended.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson, Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien,
Abstain. Motion carried. Again, we also have a pilot pass-through payments. Ally, would you explain that, please?
Yes, I have two projects that haven't paid their town and county and special district taxes yet, but they have been sent revised letters with the 1% late fee attached to it, and I haven't heard anything from them just yet. Everyone else has paid though.
Okay. Need a motion to accept the pilot pass-through payments that since you come in and go out to the towns and villages and county.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Leggett. Do we have a second? Mr. Campbell? All in favor?
Aye.
Carrie?
No, they're just.
It's pass-throughs. They just pass those. We don't need a roll call on that, just for information only. So we have been presented a contract to purchase a piece of property. Was Craig coming tonight, Jack, or?
Craig Darby, who represents the buyer, is currently right now wandering around the Washington County Courthouse building. For some reason, he got the information mixed up. And I told him the condition of the roads and stuff that I would call him back afterwards. So with the chair's permission, this was presented to the executive committee last week. The owner of Kenyon Properties, they're currently located in the phase one of the industrial park. They take and provide sloping of pipes that keep leakage to a minimum. They do it primarily over the northeast United States. They're planning on adding on to their existing building and providing additional jobs. I think my memory recalls that initially there would be like 4. But in order to do that, their trucks that they use, licensed, currently inspected trucks, would need to be parked someplace off-site. And so Lot 3, which is up on County Line Road, met their needs. And so based upon our asking price of $25,000 per buildable acre, the property itself has a little over 2.5 acres, but about 1/2 of it is designated as wetlands. So, so the price is $51,000. The additional $1,000 is to cover our attorney's fees and any filing fees or anything that we might have to do. They are going to, we're going to need some waivers as it relates to this project because it doesn't meet the specifics of the covenant. However, because there's going to be additional capital investment and new jobs created, and we did advise them that if they're doing an addition, that they should come in and talk to the IDA for that also. We had a discussion as it related to the screening, so we directed them, the committee directed them to go to the town of Kingsbury. They talked to the town of Kingsbury, they said whatever the IDA wished, put it in the form of a letter and send it to the IDA, or make it part of the closing documents. And we had discussed the possibility of planting, small evergreen trees on the boundary of the property would suffice for that particular need. I would take it, council has reviewed the document, and I would take it and ask if members of the committee that were there wish to add anything, or if council has anything to add. I think it would be appropriate at this time.
I would note that they are current tenants in phase 1 of the park. They've been, I don't remember how long they've been there, but they've been there quite a while, as I recall.
Yeah,
So they're looking for someplace close to their current business.
they're in what is referred to as the Bondi rigging building. I think Bondi came in originally and built that building, so it's a nice building, and any expansion they do down there will fit in nicely. And the service that they provide, as our infrastructure is getting older and older, it's more cost effective to do the slip line than to dig up the pipes and et cetera. So they're going to be around for a little while.
Yes, Nick?
I was there at the meeting, and my understanding is there will be no maintenance done there. And if they plan to do any maintenance, they have to go back. Right?
Yeah, so they'll take the truck down to their current building.
But there'll be no oil changes, no any of that done on that platform.
Probably, at the most, there would be I call it a temporary electrical entrance, would be a pole.
Yeah.
Because they would want some lighting for security purposes, and they would also probably have cable run in, not for the TV, but they would have a attachment to the internet for security for their cameras and stuff. There's a possibility that there might not be any vehicles there at all during the week. For example, they're down in Connecticut right now doing a very large job, so all their vehicles are down there. They do have a policy, though, that their employees do come home for the weekend, so the vehicles would be parked there then.
Mr. Biddle?
I believe that the buyer was also agreeable to the concern I had that all vehicles be registered and inspected and up to date. That should be in the contract.
Should be in the contract, if not, we need to add it.
Yep.
At attorney review.
And the gentleman that was present there verbally had agreed to that.
Mr. Campbell?
You mentioned covenants and waivers or something. Is it something that we don't see on this sheet that needs to happen that you referred to?
Well, the actual document contains all the covenants. It also contains their application. My suggestion, I can speak from a realistic standpoint, but I would suggest that the attorney talk about what she feels any waivers to the covenants might need to be.
So, the covenants indicate that, that the land, no land shall be used for any purpose other than light manufacturing, assembly, research, or laboratory operation, and as may be permitted by the IDA from time to time in accordance with these covenants. So under section, that's in section 2.1 of the covenant. Section 8 allows you to grant a variance for the use based upon a showing of need, reasonableness, and compatibility with other businesses in the park. So you would need to make that finding and grant the variance for the contemplated use.
Because they're actually just parked there instead of anything else being done.
Correct.
Yes, Mr. Riddle.
I probably would not support or entertain this if the folks weren't current tenants and were not going to expand their own business. And since there's not a lot adjacent to their current business, they're looking for somewhere else, and that's why they came to us.
They would have preferred to have a location close to theirs.
No.
Was it Glusha right next to them, or
Right in back of them.
right in back of them? That's
Yeah.
what they would like, but they're not going anyplace. So.
Yeah, and you had brought up another parcel that, somewhere along the sewer district, Warren, Washington, that just didn't have enough space, was wetland or something.
They'd walk that property. I suggested you look at it. They walked the property and didn't find it suitable for their needs.
Yeah.
Yes, Craig.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this variance go with the land or just with the?
It would go for this particular use. So if
Yes.
if they altered the use, they would, and it doesn't fit within the variance, then they need to come back.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, as Mr. Biddle had mentioned, this is associated, it's ancillary to an existing use within the park
Right.
itself. So if in the future they sold lot number 3, again, that our covenants would come back in.
This would be
place.
specific to them for this specific
Thank
use.
Okay.
Mr. Biddle?
Also comfortable with the market price that's being offered for what Mr. Kelly said. I believe it's 2.53 acres and about 0.5 of it is wetlands. So that puts us to 2.0 buildable acres, and our going rate per buildable acre is $25,000. The offer is $50,000 plus $1,000 for attorney's fees.
Any other, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Just a question. I've heard that it's a commitment that they're going to add some jobs or expand their business. Is there anything that we're putting in the deed that says that it's tied to this? Another way of asking this question is, would we be making the sale if they weren't expanding their business?
I think the question is that we have sold property before that wasn't tied to jobs, a strict sale. We do have that capability to just do a strict sale. Would we like to have jobs? But I think we're also helping a current existing business flourish and expand and possibly have more jobs at their current location. However, it's not going to reflect in any type of package, any type of incentives we could give them. So
I think one item that would need clarification and that we could put in the contract during attorney review period, also if you're proceeding with this, is language regarding what is going to be acceptable for the agency as far as screening goes. Because at the executive committee, we had indicated we told the company to go to Kingsbury and see what Kingsbury was going to require. It sounds like Kingsbury is now saying, go back to the IDA and see what the IDA wants. So we'll need to formalize that as well.
So that's going back to Kingsbury again? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I guess I'm not sure what Kingsbury told you.
I am told that they approached the administrator of the planning and zoning in Kingsbury, and they said basically whatever the IDA is going to be requiring will take and meet their needs. I think the kind of think the yardstick, you know, from one standpoint, when you talk about screening, somebody thinks of a fence that you would have like around a junkyard. Well, that's not something that, first of all, that they would be willing to do, nor really in this particular case, we are talking about an industrial park. And we had discussed both at the committee meeting and then afterwards, that if there was a planting of evergreens around the boundary line, that they would be willing to take and do that. And I said I would come back to the IDA and see, you know, as I look at it from a real estate standpoint, that does meet the requirements of the covenant. And it's something that's from a legal standpoint as to whether it does or not.
So if we look to a couple of properties, not RW Shaves anymore, it's Equistock. Equistock is faced with the same requirement to put up the barrier. They put up the trees and it's grown up and you can't see, you know, it screens it a lot better. Can't say it always screens it, but it is practice we have done in the past. So we have set precedence on allowing the green to grow up and be the screening.
So what I hear now is that the town has approved it, and we could go ahead with what we want to do, right? That what you said?
That's what I understand.
Is it in the minutes of a meeting somewhere? So we,
The town has not approved it.
no.
Just for clarification.
Yeah, they're still gonna need to come in for whether it's site plan or special use
I don't think we.
permit. And I believe that the provisions that we have is we don't close on the property until they come back with all governmental approvals in place.
Right, the contract is contingent upon that.
Mr. Chairman, how long is this contract valid for, Jack? Do they need us to make a decision today, is what
I
I'm
haven't spoken to
trying to
them.
get at. Can this wait until next month for us to make a decision?
I believe that they've been now working on this for 3-4 months. And I think with what they're proposing, I don't know this for sure, but to answer, Mike, your previous question about having some hook back to them on making sure that they create the jobs and stuff, they would be perfectly happy to continue to store their trucks where they are right now. But because they're adding on to the facility, and because of the add-on, they're gonna have additional jobs. And or else they would be spending the $51,000. It is my belief that, yes, they wanted some kind of an answer here at this meeting today.
Yes.
I guess just a statement. I always have concerns when I get approached with something that I haven't had a chance to discuss and I need to make a decision today. I don't like those things because there's things that I don't get to understand. So if I'm pushed, then I'll go with the perception of the other members of the board. But if I'm not pushed to make a decision today, then I'd like some time to talk about this and maybe meet with some of the other board members and go see this facility and see what they're doing and talking to these guys.
I think that they're probably going to come back in again for the addition, get that opportunity. I've been chatting with the chairman about the procedures to be followed when we're marketing and we have a prospect to come in. And this was one where we were fortunate to be able to pass it through the executive committee, and they, again, and I hope the full board respects the opinion of the committee process. We have in the past with one client brought in someone directly to the full board, and I would take and say in that particular case, I could, agree that you're kind of put at a disadvantage. But when we've gone through the process of bringing them in and going through our process, and I would ask the executive committee people as to whether it's their recommendation that we proceed forth or not.
Brian.
So to clarify, we're basically voting the covenants in
Well,
whatever waivers,
if you-
that we would agree with them, and then it's going back till till Kingsbury decides, and then it's coming back to us again for the whole package? Is that where we're at?
Well, so if you're planning to take action today, there's a couple of things you'll need to do. You have to do any disposition in accordance with the terms of your property disposition guidelines. So your guideline is based off of PAAA, which says that all sales of real property must be publicly bid, unless you fall into one of these exceptions. So this is similar to the previous lot sale you approved, but that's on the agenda as well. But the only exception that would apply in this case is that the disposal of the property is intended to further public health, safety, or welfare, or an economic development interest of the agency. Otherwise, the policy requires that you put it out to public bid. So you would first have to make that finding that the methodology of the sale is in accordance with this provision, promoting and furthering an economic interest. Then you would have to approve the variance, the use variance, and then you would be approving the contract as presented at this meeting. Then the contract is contingent upon the town's approval of the project, which also requires them to come back with the plans and show those to you, or whatever it is that they're doing. And it sounds like there's going to be some sort of communication with the town as to what the IDA would be looking for with respect to this screening.
So either way, if we do all those things, that's gonna come back to us again after we see what Kingsbury does?
Well,
I'm just
the contract's gonna be contingent upon the town approving the project. So if they go for site plan review and they say, the town says no, denies their application, or they have requirements that this company is not willing to comply with, then they would terminate the contract. Yeah.
Mr. Wild,
Would that
or
come
Mr.
back to
Leggett, I'm
us?
sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've seen this happen at the town level between the zoning board and the planning board. Somebody comes in and one board goes, well, if the other board approves it, then we'll do whatever they say, and they throw it back and forth. And we're in a similar position. I don't like being in this position, that we do have covenants on this park, and they are in there for a reason. And it is to maintain a certain standard. And it is within a town that has its own plan and would like to see things conform in a particular way. So I'd be fine with IDA not prescribing anything at this point in time, but putting it into Queensbury's lap to Kingsbury's, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Kingsbury's planning board for their site plan review and go through that due process and have it be, yeah, and take it from there. You know, we could have some language of, you know,
We could add language
of-
if they're
of-
required to come back with their plan at this
yeah,
simultaneous,
you know,
present it to you.
waiving our right to screening based on their, what they see fit for screening on a piece of property that is within their town.
Mr. Bruno,
How long has this lot been for sale?
I think we've had this 20 years, maybe 15, but
Has there ever been any interest expressed in this lot? Anybody know?
we've sold other plots, but we haven't had any interest in that lot specifically. Most lots have gone back around. And as you see a little later this meeting, we also have some issues with water. And part of the encroachment on the back end of this property is some water, so but that's the history of what I know, and I've only been here 10 years, but I don't remember ever seeing any interest in this lot.
I appreciate that. And to Mr. Wild's point, or Mr. Leggett, sorry, or Mr. Wild. The planning board may not be able to act on this. I'm not sure. If this is not approved, this agency owns the property, correct? And we have covenants, whatever. They can't approve something that is not already approved by this board, if you will. In other words, they can't say, yeah, you can go in and you can do. That's my knowledge from being on the planning board in Glens Falls. You couldn't act on it unless it was something that was approved. Does that make any sense?
So one way forward is to approve this contingent on them coming back for final approval after they go through the planning and various, there's no variance, planning process with Kingsbury. That is potential for the board's consideration.
Thank you.
Nick?
And tell me, I understand that, and tell me now what's gonna be in there regarding the fencing. We're gonna tell them they have to put some vegetation in there or something there.
Yes.
I don't want, I'll say it again, I said it to me the other day.
No.
I don't want it to look like that eyesore on the other end of the park. The one that has a fence falling down.
Mr. Biddle?
Mr. Chairman, is this on the county line?
Yes.
County Line Road, yes.
So does it have to go before the county planning board as well? Just the town of Kingsbury?
I think it's just the town of Kingsbury.
Okay, just check.
I don't think I think the only thing that goes to county planning board now is I believe is special things, and this isn't special, this is just not even a
Well, I just
subdivision.
figured we were special, so I thought it would.
We're special in here, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
When he
Yes.
says that.
I just would like to be, once we say, oh, plant evergreens there without giving the specifications of height, diameter, means the spacing behind it, it becomes a little too open.
Right.
On there, and we are not, we could go forward and write them up and put that in at this point in time, but I would just as soon not. That's something, to be left to a planning board. I'm sure they have more experience and are geared up for that.
So I think,
Should we
Yes,
add,
Mike.
just one more, please. And it's a question for Jack. Jack, if we make this if we make this so that we're not approving it today, is that gonna create any heartburn?
Yeah, I think,
These buyers?
I think they'll walk. I mean, and I've been listening to your discussions here, and I find it very, very interesting. But I agree with Mr. Leggett here that, the planning board should be the one determining that's what the committee told them to take and do. Basically, just follow the normal process of how commercial real estate is sold. We have a contract here. The contract is basically a form contract that's been approved by all the bar associations in the area. We have taken and filled in blanks. We've added addendums to make it as complete as we possibly can. I don't know if they've got to go to a bank to get financing to buy this, or they're buying it out of their cash, but they need a certain level of predictability. The other thing is this is a question for the gentleman that's been on the planning board. I don't think that they can go to the planning board and start a process unless the owner of the property agrees to it, or they can take and show that they've got a contract. So the proper process here is approve, authorize the chairman to sign a contract for the sale of this property, subject to, and there's a provision in here, a paragraph, to 5-day attorney review, and the other side gets the same thing. There are covenants that are attached here that states very specifically what they have to take and do. And one of them is, you don't close on the property until they come back with site plan approval in their hands, and they show you what their site plan is. So, with that.
They can get that if they're what we call contract vendee.
Right.
If they have a contract,
Right, if they have the contract.
they could go.
But without that, they don't have legal standing.
so,
So to answer your question, to bifurcate this and send it out, I don't believe that they're gonna stay around.
what's the wish of the board? We want to consider moving this forward with the conditions we talked about, and that they come back with site plan review and acceptable screening of the property before closing.
That'd be fine.
Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
So Kara, could you tell us the resolutions we need to pass?
I'm trying to get the last one that was sent, that we did send over from my office, so I can make sure we have all the proper
Could we defer?
language in here. So somebody's sending me over in a minute when they.
So we're accepting this contract with the condition
With the conditions, that's correct.
of the planning board.
Yes.
And
And
then
then,
And not them coming back. They don't have to come back.
Well, they have to.
They have to come back.
They have to come back to the full board, but I imagine that they would come back to the executive committee, the lawyer, the chairman, to show that they've got site plan approval, or you won't have a closing to take place. The other thing is that I think you got an abbreviated copy of the contract.
Yes.
I've got the full one here that has the covenants, and if you haven't read the covenants, it's interesting to read. And second, the application that they make as to who they are. So with the chairman's permission, I'll put that in the middle of the table if any of you want to take and see, excuse me, see what those additional items. I did make a whole bunch of copies because I think I clicked
Okay,
on
go ahead, take a look.
so,
And then if I can just, I also have a full copy if anyone wants to look at it, but the full copy was sent to you all in your email. It was 35 pages, so I just did the first 5.
so do we want to move past this and start our next item of business while Kara gets the
Yes.
Yes.
proper language? Okay, thank you. So I'm also going to move up the other option, the other thing. I do have a statement to read. I know this has been in everyone's minds, paper every place else, but I want to thank you all for attending tonight. Regardless of your reason for being here, we appreciate your interest in the future of Warren and Washington County. Over the past 4 years, Fort Edward has lost tens of millions of dollars in assessed value and many well-paying jobs due to relocation of manufacturing processes. We now have an opportunity to welcome a new company to the area, bringing an investment over $17 million to the area, initially adding 50 well-paying jobs. WL Plastics site selection process has taken well over a year and a half and led to the selection of the former sediment processing facility in Fort Edward. They are committed to this site. However, they do have to ensure that they have completed their due diligence. They have invested in environmental reviews, completed many evaluations of the site, and completed their survey of the site. They now need to go through subdivision and zoning process. One of the largest issues preventing them from completing the purchase is the lack of durable access to the facility. The road under its current EPA ownership cannot provide permanent access, allowing them to get clear title. The only access permits that can be provided by EPA and Canal Corp, if the road is transferred back to them, are temporary and revocable. Additionally, there are 3 parcels owned by WCC. Until the entire road is in control of the municipality who can provide permanent access, WL will not be able to get clear title. This has an impact not only on WL Plastics, but also will affect the ability for any company making substantial investments to relocate to the former dewatering facility. Until those issues are solved, we will have an extremely valuable industrial park laying unused, producing no taxes to assist the local economy. How does Warren Washington County fit into this? IDA fit into this? The counties of Warren and Washington County Industrial Development Agency is a public benefit corporation created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the construction, expansion, and equipping of economically sound industrial and commercial facilities in order to advance job opportunities, general prosperity, and economic welfare of the citizens of Warren, Washington County. The agency's primary role is to provide financial assistance and incentive to the business community in order to maximize private capital investment in the economy of Warren County and Washington County, and to develop opportunities for job creation and job retention within the counties through the use of its own assets, issuance of industrial development revenue bonds, tax abatement, and private investment. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about right now, the IDA developed an industrial park across from the airport in Queensbury several years ago. There are many successful local companies in both phase 1 and phase 2 of the park. Most of the park is located in Kingsbury and Washington County, contributing untold millions in taxable property value and hundreds of jobs. When WL selected Fort Edward, the IDA was approached to acquire the balance of the property in a sediment processing facility. in order to assist in further attracting new investment and jobs in Fort Edward and our counties. We are still evaluating that purchase. In discussions with EPA and Canal Corp, we discovered the IDA is considered a subunit of the New York State, and thus is eligible to apply to have Block 8 Gateway from Route 196 to dewatering facility transferred to IDA ownership. Block 8 has a bridge on it that is a temporary bridge. A new and permanent structure with a much longer lifespan is needed. Over the past years, we have struggled to find ways to make this road a permanent road with a permanent bridge, allowing development in this area. Without a project, this was not possible. We now have an opportunity to make this a reality. If we lose this project, we lose the ability to capitalize on available funding. The IDA's plan is to apply for transfer of the road. We're also eligible for and have been encouraged to apply for Upstate Revitalization Initiative funds in order to replace the bridge. There are also other grant sources available to assist in bridge and other infrastructure improvements. I would like to emphasize that funding without a project is very hard to find. With our partner WL Plastics as a viable project, we can utilize those funding sources to replace the bridge and build infrastructure. This is not without risk, but it does fit our mission. There are 3 pieces of property owned by WCC which are needed to complete durable access into the facility. WCC has owned a large share of that property along Lot 8 Gateway for over 30 years, as indicated in the paper. They may be willing to donate the property to the IDA to complete ownership of the road. This will allow the IDA to provide a permanent easement to WL Plastics, then providing the needed durable access. Tonight, the IDA will consider whether we will commit the resources pursuing acquisition of the road. I would also like to give thanks to Betty Little and Carrie Warner for their tireless efforts. Also, Elise Stefanik and Mr. Schumer, in their advice and assistance in the efforts to bring WL Plastics to the area. So I just want to read that. I know people know it, but I need to refresh in my mind, understand what is up to us. And if we don't move forward, we lose WL Plastics. We're back to the same goal. How do we improve that site? How do we get access to the site? I know there's a lot of different opinions on that, but we need to chart a way forward. And while WL Plastics is still interested, I know that I spoke to them yesterday. They are still considering purchasing the property within this year, which means the taxes for Washington County get paid, $850,000 plus. Next week, they're bringing 2 of their candidates for the management of this site up here to look at the site and to look at the area to see where they are. So they will look at it. But the still thing that's holding them up, it will stop them from coming, is durable access to that site. So that's the stakes that we're looking at. So having said that, I'd like to open discussion. You were passed a resolution around. Send an email, passed the resolution. So I'd like to discuss whether or not the IDA is willing to consider taking the road, applying for the road, I'm sorry. Yes, Mike, as well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. In your statement, you mentioned the risks, right? Where it's not without risk. Can we review those risks just briefly, what they are?
We can.
What the consequences to those risks might be?
We can. The first consequence of the risk is that we don't get the initial funding from URI. I also passed out a sheet of all of, it was prepared by Economic Development of other sources for industrial park development. Some federal, some local, some federal, some local. There's also a possibility of marrying both federal and state grants to put together to get there. So the risks are we don't get funding for the bridge. I do have in my possession, which I have not read, was recently Canal Corp did an inspection of that bridge. I haven't looked at it and reviewed it. So we're looking at that as a possibility.
So how do we mitigate that risk if that comes true?
How do you mitigate that risk?
We have to come up with $2 million to replace the bridge? The IDA does?
Well, the important thing to remember is when we look at the bridge itself, the complete bridge does not have to be replaced. the abutments, which is, I'm not sure, someone knows bridges can tell me what portion of it is, the superstructure. Our county DPW is a former bridge inspector for DOT, so she ran her numbers and found out what numbers are. She came with an estimate of $1.1 million to replace the bridge. That was with the abutments. So she is still putting together a figure on that. So what we have is a bridge with a life of probably, what I've seen, 12 years to 15 years.
2032, I think.
2032 is a CTML. I don't know what this bridge inspection did,
No,
but, because I haven't read it yet, I just got it literally before I walked in this meeting. So, that will be reviewed. Michael?
On the resolution, under point 2, it says now therefore it is hereby resolved that, and under point 2, it refers to 3 pieces of property in the town of Fort Edward. There's actually one in the town of Kingsbury, just to have that corrected.
Thank you for correcting that.
Absolutely.
So, yes, there are risks. There are risks that we have to find alternate ways to do it. One of the ways that we can consider is we could put together a consortium of people on that road. We could charge them a fee for maintenance of the road. Our goal is not to hold that, hopefully not to hold that property after the bridge is built. We have resolutions for Fort Edward and Kingsbury that we will accept the road pending, well, Kingsbury is pending the replacement of the bridge. Fort Edward will take their share of the road at any time.
So that's the only risk moving forward.
That's a risk. One that keeps me up at night.
that's a risk. There's others.
There's others. That's a major one. Yes, Bruce?
I asked the county treasurer if all taxes have been paid on those 3 parcels, and they have been paid up to date, which is good news. But what happens in the 1st of March? And they generate all new, year's taxes, and
As of March 1st, I'll step back. It's my understanding that there are 2 of those pieces of property have to be subdivided. So when they're subdivided out, then the IDA would apply for tax exempt status. The one piece of property, if we, as conferred to us before March 1st, we would also apply for tax exempt status on that piece. The eventual goal would be to wrap them all up into one big road.
but there will be taxes due, generated after the 1st of March. But my question is that, is WCC volunteering to pay the taxes continually on those properties, and then they're going to give them?
Well, it'll be tax exempt. There won't be any, the only thing accruing on that would be special district tax.
On the 1st of March, they're going to go back on it. They're going to generate another year's taxes.
The subdivided properties can't generate until they're subdivided. The Mary Webb piece, known as Mary Webb piece, we could get that tax exempt, so new taxes don't generate after March
They have
1st.
that tax exempt by the 1st of March.
Depending if it was transferred before then, yes. It's just one simple form submitted by March 1st.
Do you anticipate doing that?
I have not been offered the property yet. So that would be my desire to do that. Mr. O'Connor.
I have proposed deeds for those 3 parcels of land, which I will submit to council for their review. And as soon as we get their review, we will get the deeds fully executed and recorded. One deed is for the Mary Webb parcel, which cost WCC probably around $65,000. We paid $135 to Mrs. Webb. I know there was a legal fee of at least $10,000 through the process. I don't know what the engineering and surveying fees have been, but it has been surveyed and there is a map of it. And there are other costs that also probably go into the cost of that property. The other 2 parcels is, one is a 1.14 acre parcel that EPA missed in its description as it did taking from the Canal Corporation. That, they missed that, and that still is in WCC's title. The other parcel, Mary Webb is the connection to the north.
That's what,
The other parcel is a 1.54 acre parcel that is the connection to the south. So that with those parcels and what the EPA conveys, you should have a road from 196.
From Newton Lane.
From Newton, the end of Newton Lane, there's a little stub of Newton Lane, down Kingsbury Road. You should have a complete road, which would be durable access, which is what the pipe company has asked for. It won't be by easement, it then can become, it will be a public road that's owned by the county, or owned by a municipality of some nature. So that would put us on the goal list with the pipe company. And that's really what's necessary. I'll submit those forms to Kara this afternoon before the meeting's over.
okay. We appreciate your willingness to donate the properties. It's very,
I didn't mention that, I think we did a cost analysis based upon the footage of the road as to what we paid very well, which is kind of excessive. But if we use the same figures, the parcel that is at the south end of it probably is worth $524,000. So the contribution is going to be in the nature of $675,000 by WCC cause, if you will.
amazing enough, I looked at the assessed value of Mary Webb piece of property. That's assessed at $130,000. It sort of surprised me.
Well, that's because that's the purchase price.
That was the purchase price, and then we had the cost of the purchase on top of that. I think the other piece has got to have the assessment too. I haven't looked at that.
So am I right, those need to be subdivided out of the,
They do need to be subdivided out, and in fact, the parcels that the pipe company is purchasing also are subject to the subdivision. Because there is probably, like Wild asked about risk, there probably is 40 acres left in the land that is, that was contributed to Fort Everett Local Property Development Corporation that is beyond the amount that is going to go to the pipe company, which is an opportunity for further development, further sales. They told us in one of their meetings that they usually bring in a sister company that does the fittings and whatnot. So they expect it won't only be just the pipe company that comes in when they make their commitment, their final commitment. It'll be others. And this, I think, is true in any, when you bring in any large operation, there are suppliers and whatnot that want to be very near to it. So I think you're going to have a good opportunity to market that additional acreage and support this project with funding from that acreage.
On top of the roadway pieces, we do have the current water line goes through from East Street into the park through one of our properties. We're going to offer the easement for utilities for the natural gas and the sewer for WL Plastics as well.
And also, I think on the same parcel, we are going to offer a temporary easement for access to further convince the pipe company that things are underway, that they will have access. That would be temporary only to the point that the road is actually open as a public road along Lock 8 Way, I guess is what they call it. Then that access easement from East Street will terminate. But the easement for the utilities will be permanent and serve the pipe company.
there's always hope to also, to better that property is to get a road in from the south. That's a pipe dream of other people, but that would give us access from both ways. It would probably be cheaper, it may be cheaper than the bridge, but I don't know at this point, but it would be a pipe dream to get that in there because it opens up that intermodal access.
There was a mention, I think one of you gentlemen mentioned that the land is being donated would be sizable amount for a match, but do we know whether the timing would work, that it will be available for as a match?
It is my understanding from talking through the URI process is that we can't officially accept title till after we apply for the grant. Using this, it leverages the public-private partnership that they're looking for, an upstate revitalization initiative. So we have talked about that. So the transfer would be, if we decided to go forward, I'll use today as a magical date, is that we will apply for the road within the next few days, whenever our attorney can apply the proper paperwork. We would then apply for the CFA, which ESD has been waiting for quite a bit of time. They're the ones that invite us to apply for the grant. So once that's put in process, within a certain period of time, we could accept the property.
So does that answer that you do think that we can use that donate as our match?
Yes. Yes, according to Laura Oswald, who's a lot better at economic development than anyone in this room. At least the regulations and everything, and I know that she's helped a lot of companies understand what the prospects are.
Sometimes they can't go backwards.
Right, can't go backwards. That's right, can't go backwards. That's a
what he's
danger.
saying.
That's what he's saying.
You can't take title until they made the application.
Really make the application.
So,
Okay. That's good to know.
Dan,
So the not dilemma, but there's two things here. If you don't have the land, you can't build the road.
Mhm.
And if you don't have the bridge, you can't use the road. So you need the land to at least build the road
Mhm.
and then determine how the bridge will be funded.
well,
And,
let's step back, Dan. There already is a road there.
right,
The road was built by EPA during the dredging process. There is a bridge there. The bridge was termed as a temporary bridge,
it's a Bailey Bridge,
well, maybe bridge,
maybe, but
same thing.
my point is, yeah, the road is there. Point is, if you don't have the property, it's not your road, so to speak. And if you don't have the road,
Can't do anything about the bridge.
Should we bridge?
The road's owned
So-
by EPA.
you need the road in order to make this desirable for development.
Mhm.
And then in turn, if you have the road, you say, here's the road, but we need a bridge. And then you can forward with that, so to speak. So,
And I've already spoken to WL Plastics. WL Plastics is willing to share expenses on the road. And we would approach anyone else who has interest down there to share expenses on the road. Our hope is that we can make out some sort of arrangement for plowing with the organizations currently plowing it, because they need to get access there, but we'll work those details out. We did budget a figure of $6,000 to $9,000 a mile to plow, sand. We were advised not to salt that road, just put sand on it, especially for the bridge. And I don't think we want salt going in the canal. So,
Keep it from freezing.
but eventually
we have
that,
no motion.
that road would revert to the towns. Or-
The hope is once the bridge is, Fort Edward will take the road at any time.
Right.
Kingsbury says, the resolution says they will accept the road if the bridge is done.
Okay.
There's also private development with IDA Parks. So IDA Parks have their MOUs for maintenance of roads and stuff. They go through, I mean, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I'm all in favor of trying to do whatever we can to help with economic development. That really is our charter. Is there anything else that's standing in the way for WL Plastics coming if we get this all cleaned up? If we get this, the road access, the conveyance of the property that's being graciously offered, is there anything else that's stopping them from coming forward and committing to taking this property?
Because I understand
Bring
the
their business
process, and John's been through the process with them too, is they've done the environmental review, they've done their site evaluation, they've done test holes all over the place for septic, They're looking to donate a sewer line from East Street into, donate's the wrong word, because that's what they do is put in sewer line.
Right.
They're willing to use this as a training video and a marketing video. They will put their own sewer line in from there to East Street, which opens up sewers. I haven't been involved in discussions. I know they've been talking to Washington County Sewer District about that in close cooperation. And so I know that that's what they're looking at in the future. I have no other note. I don't have anything else I know of. It's a major stumbling block that they can't get over.
They've spent a lot on engineering already, so they've already worked on the engineering for building expansion, engineering to bring the rail line up to the larger building. They've got a big investment already into the site, especially legal. So I think, they want the road. All they say, number one, is durable access. So, and according to the engineers, the sewer, I guess they're through that hurdle. And then they're working with natural gas, with National Grid from East Street. So it sounds like everything's finally coming together. When they bring the sewer to the site and the gas, there's no guarantee there's going to be extra capacity for other tenants.
Correct.
No guarantee there'll be natural gas capacity for anybody.
Yeah, right.
So,
They only need natural gas for just minimal office heat, et cetera.
so I do know that they're bringing 2 of their senior managers up here next week to review the site, look at the site. I also know that they have a timeline what they need to do. I mean, they're not gonna wait forever for the road to be available to them. And I have some. So here's our chance to figure out where we're going from here and make a choice where we're going. So, other questions? Yes,
If
Mike.
I may just suggest, if there's the public is here, can we hear from them in terms of some of their thoughts, concerns, before we make a decision moving forward?
As long as the rest of the board has their questions answered at this point. So I will tell you that we have a time limit of 3 minutes. By resolution of the board, there's 3-minute time limit to talk. So, Mr. Haff.
Dan Haff, Washington County Supervisor of the heart of the county, town of Hartford. I think if you keep saying the word WL plastics in this whole thing, you're speeding up a process that needs to be slowed down. Forget about WL plastics. Do this right. Look at the road. If the IDA takes the road that the EPA transfers to it, the town of Kingsbury will not accept their portion. Have you heard that? Did Dana Hogan tell you that directly, Dave?
No,
He told me he told you that directly.
he told me you reversed that.
He said that if IDA takes the road, town of Kingsbury walk away. Why would the town of Kingsbury take it? Problem is already solved. I'm very concerned that in this resolution here, you talk about the chairman can take further actions to effectuate this resolution. You might get something you don't want. Also in here, item number 4, the agency approves the lease agreement. Then it goes on pursuant to the terms and conditions of the lease agreement. Are you going to be accepting something that is permanent, that follows the land? Is there going to be a restriction or a covenant on these properties, maybe between Fort Edward LPDC and WCC, that you now then inherit a permanent restriction? I know there's a lot of talk about the wharf. I hear a lot of discussion about how, Fort Edward LPDC wants to now convey property back to the WCC for access to the wharf. I think you have to be extremely careful that whatever you decide here today, there's not a ramification like the other shoe that will drop afterwards. Also, Washington County formed a working group. Brian, you're on this working group to work with EPA on how to convey this road to a municipality. Your action here completely subverts that working group. The EPA has not even come to this working group to talk about it. That working group was established to figure all this out, and now you're going to do an end run around the Washington County Board of Supervisors working group. What is the rush here? I know WL makes this all a rush. I think you need to slow down, make sure everything is right and that there isn't some fine print that somebody doesn't realize until afterwards. Thank you.
Travis?
Travis Boyd, Town of Queensbury. I like everything that I've heard here today. However, there may be things that we haven't heard here today, and, you know, you need to look into that. But we all, I think, would like WL, we would like the jobs that WL brings. The idea that these three pieces have been holding up that sale is absolutely true. What hasn't really been said is that these defects in that property have existed for over a year. Now all of a sudden, it seems like we're in a panic to do something about it because WL is here. I mean, I don't know why this wasn't addressed a year ago. We had those same defects then. They were pointed out back then that we did not have access. So now their lawyers have pointed it out that we can't go forward with those three missing pieces. But I appreciate that the offer has been made to fix that. The concern that I have is, and this board will be know this quite well, is that they had an earlier proposal directly from WCC to be granted a permanent and exclusive permanent easement for accessing that wharf. That's not being discussed here. There's an alternate suggestion that was made at the Fort Edward LPDC meeting last week to go ahead and for them to take back a small piece of land on the far eastern region right bordering the wharf. I really don't have a problem with that, except for the fact that there's a causeway in that piece. This piece runs underneath the causeway, and that could be seen as restricting traffic over that causeway. And that's the only way to get to the wharf with any heavy trucks. And you know, they have this option for this acreage. They say it's 3/4 wetland. It is 3/4 of wetland. The reason there's a causeway there is you can't ride anything over it without, you know, really beefing it up. So I'm not seeing that option. It was explicitly stated at the meeting in Fort Edward that the two pieces, you know, the option and this granting are not coupled together. But I've heard people walk back on that a little bit in the past week as well. But I'd be very careful about that, because the IDA, absolutely, your pure purview is to go ahead and look at increasing economic development in the area. And it should be a flat playing field for everybody. I think WCC should have access to that wharf. I think anybody else, Peckham or anyone else, should have access to that wharf if they so decide. And you know, I think you should make certain that that is not going to be taken away from other people. I have a simple suggestion, and that is on that option. The option is to take a contiguous piece of land that goes underneath the bridge. If they would like to split that into two pieces, have one piece on the other one side of the bridge, one piece on the other side, but you should retain durable, you should retain title.
Durable access.
Fee simple title to that land underneath the causeway. And WL has already told you, they're not interested in permanent easements or anything else. That's lawyer land. They want to see fee simple, and you've got fee simple now, or you at least have the ability to take fee simple. You should keep it that way, so that everybody has access to that wharf. That's my only concern. Otherwise, everything I hear today is fine. We just haven't heard anything about that.
So, thank you, Travis. Thank you, Dana. Mr. Warren?
I just have a question about what Mr. Whitehead said. I'm looking at the map, and I guess I don't understand this access to the wharf, because I'm looking at property lines, and the Fort Edward Local Development Corp owns property that's adjacent to the New York State lands, which own the wharf. It doesn't seem like there's anything in between.
So if I could point that out, is it okay?
Fine with me.
So you see, here's the,
This is the access, right?
correct.
So what they'd like to, this is the axis right here. And the piece of property they want is this little, right where my finger is, here, right across the bridge, and right down to here. This is the document that was handed out at the Fort Edward LPDC meeting that shows that little piece
Okay.
right there, and it goes right underneath the causeway. So if I own that land, I think I might be in a position to say you're trespassing. And I think that's a concern.
Mr. Biddle.
Just to clarify, from my understanding, and to help Mr. Wild and his good question, we have no purview as the IDA over that portion of the property nor the wharf. What our purview is here today is that piece of road which is up there on that map, opening up the property for WL Plastics. Am I correct in that?
That's the first step we have to take. Now, whatever decision we make today, I just want to clarify, this isn't the final answer.
Right.
This today is only to start the process, which is 3 to 6 months long. There are a lot of pieces to put in place. We will still have to come back to this body to approve accepting the road. So there's a lot of pieces. I just did a spreadsheet for WL Plastics, will I share with anyone, which is 44 items long that have to be conducted over the next 6 to 9 months, and that's simply for the road. Road access and all the other things. So that's the process to do it. Now, I heard about a potential option. I do not know what the content of the option is. I'm not a member of Fort Edward LPDC or any associated with WCC. So I can't speak to that. I do know the IDA is not involved in that decision. I did know about the restrictive easement. The restrictive easement has gone away. So I can't speak to the rest of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right now, before the IDA was the simple 2-lot subdivision of that land, one.
WL Plastics purchases, right?
Yeah. So they get, and the IDA was looking at the remainder.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's where it stands now.
That's where it stands now.
Thank you.
So I will say that I've heard a lot of discussion about the war. Brian and I had a conversation with Canal Corp and EPA today. And we asked about the wharf. They said they have no plans to use the wharf in the near future or far future. They just don't know what they're going to do with it. So it's going to sit there. I do understand the impact of the potential option. I also understand that from what we spoke to EPA and Canal Corp today, is those pieces of, those roadways that we're talking about around there are not public access. They never were public access. They were just granted to GE to use during the time of the, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike and John. At the time of the dewatering and dredging, they bought that in there.
That's
So
correct.
if people want to access to the wharf, they have to have that discussion with NIPA. They have to have that discussion with EPA, who owns it currently, and they have that discussion with them to figure out what the access is. If the Canal Corp or EPA want to use that wharf, in my humble opinion, any corporation has to deal with NIPA and then, and if Canal Corp wants to do business, they need to find access for them. There is another access road that comes right by the canal and comes up on East Street. It's not pure, it's not great. There's another access road that comes down past the lock and into that. So there are alternate access points. I haven't walked them, so I don't know what they are. But, you know, so.
Do we hear from others?
Yes. More than welcome. I think Mr. Shaw had a hand up.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank everybody for all the hard work you've done. And before I get done, you might actually ask me to leave and throw me out. But I do want to recognize.
Push you out.
Only after 3 minutes.
Well, my introduction doesn't count, right?
Oh, yes, it does. You're already 2.5 minutes in.
You should see it right during the meeting of the
There's
county.
several
It takes them 10 minutes.
Several different perspectives I want to approach this from. Number one, Dave and I don't see eye to eye on this matter, but I do respect him very much in the hard work he's put into it. Some think that Washington County supervisors have animosity towards WCC, and I won't deny maybe some do, but I really respect the business sense, your professionalism. In no way do I want to take that away from anybody. As supervisor of Easton, I'm probably here representing I'm almost an agent. And Doug, is that from Chestertown?
Yeah, correct.
Craig, I apologize. I am going to, this time on one level, talk about a big company in my town, which is Peckham Material. And I'm glad Neil is here because Neil, you can verify if I'm accurate or not, did not Peckham one time in the previous year ask to meet with you about working off that wharf and whatnot?
In generality.
Right, and that's as far as we need to go. So there's an interest from a company that's established and employs over 100 people in Washington County, and I don't know how many in Warren County. I can't answer. But to close a door to an established business that has and shown an interest in that wharf is absolutely wrong by the IDA for a potential. You're saying 50 jobs, originally was 40. I've even heard 60 now. That's unconscionable as an IDA, and I served on the IDA for 2 years with Nick and Bruce. I mean, we're here not to put barriers up, but to tear barriers down. So I'm really concerned about that. But on the same token, I think what you're trying to do is wonderful, and I agree wholeheartedly in your approach to that road. So in no way am I opposing that. You having a resolution, I don't think you've made it yet, and you're gonna vote on it. To move forward, in between the time this all occurs, there could become an option exercise by Fort Edward that blocks out Peckham Material. And can you say, if I wasn't here, you could actually say, well, I wasn't aware that's what was gonna occur. I'm making it aware of you to make everybody aware of what could occur. And I don't want you to say ignorance on this. So this is a terrible, terrible thing. If you allow that, if you look at now, WCC, I admire them. They have total access to the siding. They blocked the siding off. They have total control of that siding. They've held back one little strip. So they have control of that whole economic development area. And to wrap it up, I have to share this, and I know that Washington County, Warren County, we don't stick our nose in your business, you don't stick your nose in our business. But I can testify, and I think Daniel will back it up. There's a large, if not a majority of supervisors that are not happy with the way this is going. So just so you know that, and I'm not, and that's not a threat. I just want you to know, our representatives here aren't representing everybody's feelings.
Thank you.
So, Nick, yes.
Let's go back. I hear him. I heard Travis. I've heard him. I just want to know, in your plan and the plan that you want us to look at, does any of this have any standing? We're looking after going after the road. We're trying to get WL Plastics in there, and we have an idea that we could sell property around that.
Correct.
Does any of this have any connection to that at all?
I will go back to my statement. Whoever wants to use the wharf should go talk to Canal Corp and Nightthought, and
Not us.
not us,
We will not be in the way.
not us. Would I prefer that option not be in place, which I assume it's in place? I don't know. I can't speak to that. Mr. O'Connor might want to speak to that, or Mr. Orsini from whatever local property development corporation. I would prefer complete access to everyone. However, we do also have to understand that right now, until we accept those deeds, WCC controls all access into that entire property. All access. Check myself. There are no easements. There are no easements or any permissions or anything on that road. So right now they could put a border up, this is honest, border up there and close that entire facility. They have every legal right to do that. So I'm just stating that as a fact. So, yes.
Let me answer a couple questions, I guess.
WCC has owned that property for 30 years. It's been actually bordered the wharf itself, the property they own, before they donated the acreage, I think 78 acres, to the Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation. Nobody ever approached them to get access from their acreage to the wharf. And to get where they are, they donated the land that adjoined that to the Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation, who has now got a contract or potential contract for $800,000 for a portion of it. That $800,000 is going to go to the county, the school district, and the village to pay back taxes. That was a source of money that WCC created. They also, in addition to that, with the contributions, the forward contributions that they're going to make, are going to give another $675,000. And they have left on the table approximately 40 acres of land that could go to third parties, which would also be a source of income for somebody. Now, nobody has come to them and said, hey, we'll buy you out. We'll reimburse you for the 1.2 that you've already put on the table, or the potential of what else will come on the table. We're not trying to be unfair. We've just made a significant investment in that, and a very significant investment between engineers, survey, and attorneys. And I say thank you for the attorney investment.
I say no, thank you.
But, they're not overreaching here. We do have an option to purchase the property, a portion of the property of the Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation, which adjoins the wharf. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee that we are going to control the wharf. As you have spoken, NIPA and the Canal Corporation control the wharf. I mean, the Canal Corporation put a fence along the edge of that wharf and say, no trespassing. And that's the end of it. That's totally speculative as to what type of return we're going to get on that $1.2 million that we put out on the table. But it's a gamble that we've taken. This road is what's before you, I think. And will you accept the road from EPA if they so desire to convey it to the IDA, as well as the parcels that we have said that we will and are willing to convey to the IDA, which will give you a total road. Now, somebody said, well, why did you do this sooner? Somebody else at the table made a very good point. Without the project, there is no need for the road. Without the project, there is no road. So until we were able to get the offers and the understanding that the pipe company, and maybe a sister company, are willing to come onto that site, there's nothing to do. So now that we've got somebody that's made a valid offer, who has conditioned its offer upon having durable access, we've said, okay, we will give what we can give to get the durable access. I think EPA has indicated, David, that they would do it, and that the last I heard is within some reasonable time period before we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years.
We've been talking about it since 2009.
2009.
So,
Yes.
and very good points, Mike and John, but it's time that we do something for the local economy. Fort Edward is devastated. Brian, sorry.
So I do want to thank you guys. This is the best you've presented, better than you ever did to the county. Well, keep it sealed, maybe we'll get through this.
I didn't add, and I don't mean to cut you off, Brian. I didn't add, the option for that parcel wasn't given to us. We have put another $50,000 on the table for that option.
So what I want to say is the good thing was Dave said it's going to take 3 to 6 months for this whole process to happen. Because as this moves on, if ESD sees that as a restriction to any other businesses, all the money on the first page is gone. You won't qualify because the state will say, sorry guys, we're not in business to just see that one company makes money. That's just the way it works. That's just the way it's gonna be. So that'll all unfold in the near future.
Mhm.
We'll have time for that. But I think as far as WL goes, I think we need to keep moving along because I think they should have durable access. I think we need to get there. I've tried to find ways to make this happen since 2009, as you said. There is hostilities. I think there's multiple reasons, more or less, that what one board claimed at one time and agreed to, and as boards changed, the board changed its mind. The same guys are at WCC, they're like, wait a minute, there's enough blame to go around everywhere. The difference here is the IDA has a whole different mission. This is where this belongs, it's the IDA. I think it's a great opportunity. And I think when you work with a company, you'd rather work with one that did have some sort of money to work with and make things happen. But I don't want to push other businesses away either. And I think we're finally going down the road we belong on. And as far as Fort Edward, if we're on a scale of 1 to 10 and Fort Edward's at a 4 and they're dropping to a 2 in a hell of a hurry come March 1st. And that's not to do with this is to do with GE. And maybe even to a 1 or a 0 if we don't have something coming back. So why let it go to a 0? Why not let's stop it at 2, let them get back to a 4, and maybe this can take them back to a 10. I mean, there's some great opportunities here. I'd like to see that happen, but by no means do I want to cut other people out, but I think we need to really move forward and see about this road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with.
Wait. No.
Nick was first.
Nick was
I did, yes, he did. He's been waving at me for quite a bit. So I would like to make a statement about EPA. My council, the IDA council, I'm sorry, and I were on the phone with EPA talking to them after the meeting. There's one thing that they are looking for. There's one thing they cannot give to WL Plastics until the conditions of Kingsbury are met. That's durable access. They are unable to give them unrevocable permit to use that road until the road's transferred. It could also happen that they go down the road and it's transferred back to Canal Corporation versus to Town of Kingsbury, because I'm not saying this would happen, please don't, is that any resolution can be rescinded as fast as it can be put in place. So they were concerned about that, and I'll let Kara speak to what they said about the ability to give the access, and also about what type of application you're looking for.
Well, they had indicated that the application could not be conditioned or contain any conditions. So it had to be a request for acquisition only. No other conditions could be attached to the request made to EPA.
So having in there the application that Kingsbury's, by the resolution, said, we will take the road when the bridge is built. That was a condition they could not accept for 17 months. So I won't say they wouldn't, but that's what they told us on the phone. My concern is durable access. My concern is we're going to get the company in and open up this roadway. We need to take positive steps forward to do that. Do I like anything else is there? No, but Nick, I've said enough.
Okay.
I did want to clarify that point.
I think it's time to begin to put the target up there and shoot the arrow at it.
Mhm.
I'd like to present a resolution that we continue on the process of doing just exactly that, buying the road, making sure that WL Plastics gets in here and it fits our picture of those other lots too.
Mhm.
And that you be allowed to continue that. And along with that, we should answer the questions that came up from Mr. Shaw and Mr. Whitehead to make sure that we are not stepping into those problems and have it definitive. So I would like to put that resolution on the board so that we can start shooting at the target and not just going on there.
Don't we already have
This resolution.
So just to clarify, let me finish. This resolution contains 4 things. The first is allows to apply for the road. The second is allows to apply for upstate revitalization initiative for the money to
Right.
do the bridge. And any other, and also any other grants we want to apply for to can piggyback this and help do other infrastructure. The third one is, I forgot to accept the work on the acceptance of 3 parcels. Thank you. The fourth one is execute a lease agreement on the property down there. The only reason that is maybe needed is that most of the county, it's been proposed that property become tax exempt, so more taxes don't build up on it. They can't be satisfied. And if there's any subdivision that probably takes place, you would have to pay it all off.
Okay.
So if WL is not there, we do it. That's the only reason for the lease, because the IDA in their by statute, the IDA, once they control a piece of property in this term of the lease, can be tax exempt.
Well, I'll
Did
move
I state that correctly?
Yes.
I'll move that officially.
Moved by Nick. Do I have a second?
Second.
I would want to also, though, Mr. Chairman, say that we have had 2 interesting sidebars to this from Shaw and Whitehead, and we should answer that within this resolution.
Not within this resolution.
Not within the resolution, as a result of the resolution.
Can we make sure we amend this to the town of Kingsbury, right of head of town and village of Fort
Yep.
Edward?
Bruce?
I just want to make sure it's
I'm gonna make
correct.
that change. I'll also make the change that, expands to any other grant applications.
I think I said Mike.
To the one.
Mike is next.
Thanks. Just for the board, what we have here today is WCC has come across and they've offered to convey a bunch of property, $600,000. Right? In response, we come back and we say, that's not enough. We want full access to the wharf. That's almost like a taking, in my mind. We need to take and consider that there's private business and private enterprise here also that we need to kind of think about. Right? Why would we say that this is an issue because we don't have full, clear access to the
We're
Get your
wharf?
funding.
not saying that.
Get your funding is where the
We're not
problem
making an
We're
issue.
not making an issue.
Add it.
There were a couple of comments along
No,
those
but
lines.
it's not in the resolution.
No, it's not a resolution. What the main concern over that, you asked about risk. The risk is that you take out that whole first page of funding, because the state, if they look at that as a restriction, they say, don't come down for money when you present something like that. That's the bottom line.
What
Mike?
is the actual risk, Brian?
I saw you, Mike.
If the money was not available, you're not obligated to change the bridge.
You lose the project, you lose everything.
It sits there like.
No, I'm agreeing. I'm just saying,
Like.
The opportunity to get the money though to do the bridge will be what, and we'll find that out in the next 3 to 6 months. We'll know.
Yeah.
And you'll use our funds to use it as the
Yeah.
match.
But it's according to whether they say, hey, listen, sorry guys, we don't like that, and they'll be there, they'll know.
Did I get?
The level of risk will be very low.
All right, Mark in the background.
Thank you,
3
Chairman.
minutes.
I just had a quick question. I want to thank WCC. It's incredibly generous, and the WL project is critical for Washington County. I just had a question, since Mr. Orsini is here. Correct me if I'm wrong in this, but my understanding is you own that through the FEL PDC.
Correct.
That piece of property.
Correct.
And just what are your intentions to do with it? Do you care to share?
My intention?
The FEL PDC's intentions?
We have no money. We have been showing the property in concert with John over the past year since we had it. I've showed it uncountable times. I've toured it many times. And we want WL Plastics, first and foremost. After that, we believe the IDA is well positioned to market the property. That's your mission. We all got jobs. We just came to volunteer our time for our community to try to turn this place into a job creator, which we firmly believe it is.
Yeah, appreciate that. Would you be open to keeping that access on that piece of property open to anyone's use?
Which piece of property?
The one that,
That wharf has a Canal Corporation access right to East Street.
Mhm.
And there's probably a way to get it around the lock to the other road. I mean, there is potential. Have you ever toured the property?
I have done that, yes.
You know, I mean,
Twice,
the potential for that property is boundless. But as for the wharf, I agree with Dave. You gotta go through EPA, NIPA, and Canal Corporation. NIPA is not a fast-moving organization, I've found.
No, I just, since you were here, I thought it'd be good to hear from you and weigh in.
I mean, we just
That brought us back.
want more jobs. That's it. Simple as that. I want to say, hope save our schools.
Thank you very much.
Well,
That's all I
thank you,
had.
Ms. Westcott.
Thank you.
Any more comments from the public at this time? Any more comments from the board?
Yeah,
Bruce?
like
Sorry, I feel better now.
piggyback on Nick's
We felt better when he left.
commented that we gotta separate some of the issues. This resolution does make it possible for us to move forward. And I think the time has come to do it. Nick, you probably remember like I do, when we sat going around and around the table about refinancing the trash plan. And Dan and Al Brown and a few others said, well, what if and why? And we did it and we saved the two counties about $10 million. Had to go a step at a time.
8 years.
Yeah.
So,
Call the question.
I would call the question.
I do have a question from Mr. Leggett, before you say call the question.
No, I'm saying.
He was calling the question.
Okay.
Second, go. Aye.
All in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
I would ask for a roll call vote.
And this is on the resolution before with the
As
4
before.
points, 2
4 points.
whereases. Okay.
Craig Levitt,
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes.
Nick Caimano.
Yes.
Mike Wild.
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Brian Campbell.
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll start forward. And I will say,
She was getting ready.
oh, she's got the other thing. So I would like to say something is that it's my understanding, John, you've been down there longer than I have, there is no one shipping out of that wharf now.
We've owned the property for over 30 years. No one other than GE has shipped out of that wharf, nor has anyone directly approached us with interest. We did meet with Peckham about a year ago, and that was just a feel the water type meeting.
So there is possibility you could be look for partnerships in all this.
Never know. We partner on many other things.
Thank you, gentlemen. We thank you for the information. We thank you for everyone coming, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we review the documents. Hi, Laura. You've been quiet all night. We have other business to go forward. Now that I lost my, I lost these.
We would never want to go talk to you. No, that's the first time that's right.
So we have some,
That's the first time that's right.
That's why I want to talk about.
Well, wait a minute. I can ask this now, and I'd like a copy of, on point 4, it says,
All the leads.
yeah.
I'll send it to you.
You know, would have been nice before the vote.
Yeah, no, I know, but I didn't, the board has copies.
Board has
Oh, they
copies.
do?
Yeah,
It's far worse than this.
I just didn't bring extra copies, that's all.
I appreciate your comment.
No,
I really do.
Well, I mean, I want to see this move forward, but, you know, you don't want to screw anybody.
I don't hear what John said.
I know, but
nobody
asked.
I got to say, it was on a phone, right? On a meeting that I
Put
took.
that in, they're valued at like 100 grand.
But nobody's using it.
100 acres. No, it isn't.
And nobody is using it.
Nobody-
So we have, well, thanks, Mark.
I printed a couple copies before you got here.
So we have some other business to take care of.
You did this door shut?
No, can't shut the door. Where the old Washington County Sewer District was, that piece of property over in the corner. Someone wants to put a 40,000 square foot or 50,000 square foot warehouse in there.
Is that the one between the two,
It's two, and they got two roads into
the
it.
Tech
It's in the back.
and, Roselle or?
Yep.
Okay.
So all of a sudden we have interest. Pilot billing update. Mrs. Pilot, you already gave that, didn't you?
I did.
Recapture update. We have reviewed 3 potential parcels. Since we're not sure who is in compliance or not, we will no longer mention names at meetings. At a certain point, the board is going to have to, we know that one needs recapture because it's just recent. There are 2 others we're working on. When we get to a certain point of collecting the information, because these go back 7, 8, 9 years, is that we'll have to come to the board to get approval to move on where we want to go with that.
Okay.
There is some consideration that some of these are past the statute of limitations. There are some, there was no requirement for a specified sum in the paper, so we're digging through the paper. We found some, we haven't found some. We've asked the companies, so we can't go to New York State and get the paperwork. Marketing direction, still dewatering facility update. I think we just had that. Any other questions on old business? Okay.
And you mentioned interest in the parcel down where the old sewer.
Remember, what sewer was?
We don't own that, you know.
I'm working on that. I've asked the sewer district, who has no need for it anymore.
I don't know how many times I went to the sewer district to say, why don't you turn that over to the IDA? And they wanted something in return.
I got a better thing. I said, we gave that to you 35 years ago. We got the grants to put that sewer district building in there. You should give it back to us, buddies.
Well, you keep talking.
I'll work on it. But if we do get an offer on the property, I'll say, we'll give you $10,000 for it and we'll get the 30 or 40.
Is it on the record?
I'm not proud. So we'll see. Any other questions? Wetland proposal attached. You have the wetland proposal from Deb Roberts. That's in terms of delineation of property. She lays out the scope of work. She lays out what she needs to do, and I think I'm tired of talking, so Jack, could you explain what they're going to do?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are basically, not including the lot 3 that hopefully will come back onto the agenda this evening. There are several lots along Casey Road that have some real good potential for development. And it is our suggestion that she does a full, complete delineation on those parcels. As you come up to the roadway that has the namesake of one of your directors here, Ferguson, when you get up to the elbow of the road on the left-hand side, it's believed that because you put in the wetland mitigation area, that the wetlands have encroached over onto some of those lots. We don't know that for sure. So instead of doing a full delineation and potentially wasting your money, it was suggested that she do a walkover and do a visual and report back if it's going to be effective, that we can get enough development on those lots. So basically delineation, full delineation on Casey, walkover on Ferguson and some of the other lots that are out there behind Hecky Stock.
Does she remember that we paid her to really do this all before?
Yeah.
Was that 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, things have changed in the last 20
Yeah,
years. I mean, they didn't have computers back then.
Now we have Donald Trump in the presidency who should be lessening some of these.
Well, what has happened is it's not so much the classification of isolated wetlands or what is what you're talking about, as it is that there's real new wetlands that have been created because of the mitigation. Also, we're told that the fact that you went in there and lumbered that area off has increased the amount of wetlands also, because of transpiration and stuff.
So there is possibility that this company is interested in acquiring it. We'll have to have delineation due that we can share some of the costs with them. We did propose that with them. So because they would have to have it delineated to figure out where they can best put their solar panels. So that's a possibility. So the cost is $6,500.
Plus.
Need a motion?
Just
Need a
comment
motion.
as relates to
I so move.
Moved by Craig Leggett, second by Mr. Campbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Health insurance budget. I did prepare a budget like we talked about for health insurance for our employees. I looked through and looked at it, and somewhere in here you have a budget for it with the expenses that we looked at. We're looking at approximately on the second page, $8,000 for health insurance. The employee would pay 20% and go from there. That's a maximum allowance at this point. I know you're going to recuse yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna recuse myself, but I'm wondering if it's not proper that we're speaking about somebody in the room. Is everybody okay to talk about that?
We're not talking about.
We don't know what it is.
We're not talking
Oh,
about.
that's right.
We're not talking about a
So we're
specific person. We're talking about, do we want to offer employees health insurance?
Very well put, thank you. Just
So
wanted that.
it is not pointed at someone. I have no idea whether
Correct.
our current employee needs or requires health insurance.
Correct.
But I think that when we're relying on a person who's working 25 to 30 hours a week,
But
and
we don't know
probably
who that
more
person
now.
is, so keep going.
that- Give me a break, Biddle. I've talked to you too much in the past 3 days. So, that's that. It looks like still within that, with that income, based on what we took out in expenses, we're still net a profit of $42,000 a year. So we can comfortably afford it. It's up to the board whether they want to propose providing health insurance to any current or future employees.
Well, you know what? I'd really hate to have a bunch of Republicans giving insurance to somebody.
Yeah.
But
Recusing yourself?
Because Bernie's gonna get free health care, is that what you're saying?
let's just give it a.
Mr. Leggett lives in Canada anyways.
All right, guys. I happen to be a big believer in health insurance. But I also believe that we need better ways to provide health insurance
Yeah.
than what we have currently
Yeah.
as a blanket statement, sorry. Do I have a motion, second, third, fourth?
I'll move it.
Moved by Craig Leggett. Do I have a second? Mike Wild? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Recuse. For the record, please.
Passed, thank you. Next item of business is that Kubricki resolution. We did a resolution to sell a piece of property that we're talking about to Kubricki. They've decided not to take the property, so we need a resolution to reverse the, rescind it. So Mr. Campbell with motion, do I have a second? Dan Bruno. We'll get your name on the.
All right, welcome to the show.
Here.
Acquisition of property, we've covered that. I will tell you, I will not make any decisions without at least consulting with the executive board in a meeting. If needed, I will come to the full board.
A vote on that then?
Vote on
You
what?
already voted on that.
Already voted or not?
On rescinding?
No.
Vote on rescinding, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Kira, have a little more water.
I hope
it's water.
Do I have anything else to screw me up
Do you want me
tonight?
to do the resolution for the
Yes.
lot resale?
Yes.
Okay, so I will go through this. This is based on the resolution, the same one that you approved for Kubricki, because it kind of required the same variance and some of this, the same legal requirements. So whereas the counties of Warren, Washington Industrial Development Agency owns certain property in the town of Kingsbury, known as lot number 3, tax map number 137.2-1.4, whereas Kenyon Properties LLC desires to purchase said property from the agency. Pursuant to section 6C of the agency's disposition of property guidelines, the property may be sold by negotiation if the proposal is intended to further the economic development interests of the agency. After due consideration, the agency has determined that the disposal of the property intends to further the economic development interests of the agency, whereby the property has been on the market for over a decade with no meaningful interested purchasers, and the sale of the property will return the property to the tax rolls. Based on the foregoing, the agency has determined that the sale of the property located in the agency's airport industrial park is in the economic development interests of the counties of Warren and Washington and the town of Kingsbury, and is in accord with the public provisions of applicable federal, state, and local laws and the agency's disposition of property guidelines, and will benefit the welfare and the economies of both Warren and Washington counties and the town of Kingsbury and the residents of those municipalities. The company intends to initially use the property as outdoor storage for vehicles, and therefore has requested that the agency grant a variance pursuant to section 2.1 of the Declaration of Uses, Covenants, and Restrictions, based on the reasonable and compatibility with other uses in the park. Therefore, be it resolved that the sale of the property by the agency constitutes a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to a type 2 list adopted by the agency on March 17, 2003. Therefore, no further review is required. And the agency agrees to sell the property described above to Kenyon Properties LLC for the sum of $51,000 for development as an outdoor storage for vehicles, subject to the developer submitting a full site plan pursuant to the application, the agency's approval of the site plan, the agency's approval of the screening, and the site plan and seeker review and approval by the Kingsbury Planning Board, and the execution of the developers of a purchase and sale contract and any addendums for the property. The contract contains a reverter, so if they don't complete or maintain their project for 1 year, then the agency maintains a right of reverter to take the property back. Let's see. After due consideration and based on other similar uses in the park and the compatibility of such uses with other properties, the agency hereby approves the request for the variance. And then resolved that the chairman or vice chairman is authorized to execute and deliver a contract, deed, and any other documents necessary to effectuate this resolution.
Thank you, you heard that.
Wow.
Wow. Very well said. It's exactly what I was gonna say if you didn't come up with any.
Listen, my keyboard, that font is small on my phone.
I know that. Woo! It wasn't just one word or something you would have changed.
No, exactly.
Do I have a motion, second, third, fourth?
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Campbell, second by Mr. Biddle. All in favor? Oh, it should be a roll call.
Yeah.
Because of sale of land? Okay.
Craig Leggett,
Here, yes.
Michael Biddle,
Here, yes.
Bruce Ferguson,
No.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Dan Bruno,
Yes.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Carrie, any further business come before the Warren Washington County IDA?
Quickly, I'd like to say something. Apparently, I've confused everyone. I've changed my name.
Yes.
It's officially Weaver. Yes, I did get married, but it was 2 years ago. I'm just getting around to changing it. So,
Damn paperwork.
Oh, it's awful. It drove me. So anyway, I did change it on the website, and I do have a a Weaver at warrenwashingtonida.com, but if you forget and you email a White, I also get that as well. So, there
I
you
just
go.
wondered.
Just like a woman confusing the hell out of people. Thank you, Ally.
Brian,
Anything
first
else?
of all, I just started getting your name correct.
Sorry.
Well, she said, whatever happened if I changed my first name too? I said, don't ever do that.
I thought you hired somebody. Congratulations.
It's all
Horrible name
new.
change.
So, any other business?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, second. Adjourn. I need to open up the CDC meeting, confirm the order and confirm attendance. We will have the same members here as before. So we confirmed attendance, we confirmed the quorum. Approval of minutes from last board meeting, January 21st. Do I have a motion? Motion by Brian, second by
Dan Bruno.
Dan Bruno.
I'll abstain. I wasn't
He wasn't here. He's right.
You might know as much about it as we do.
Mr. Leggett. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? We only have one current account payable, that is McCarthy and Conlon bookkeeping, $100. We have a motion to accept, to pay that.
I'll move it.
Motion by Mr. Leggett, second by Mr. Wild.
And how is that going with them?
Ask her.
All in favor?
Good arrangement.
It all depends on the month. The CDC, he doesn't really, have much, I mean, obviously, there's not much business going on QuickBooks for that to, really take effect.
I have one
Oh,
little piece of
Nick, yes.
business.
Yes.
We have to finish voting.
We gotta finish voting.
Interrupt him.
No, we have to finish voting on that.
I guess
No,
it's
we
not
didn't.
interested.
What?
You don't have to interrupt him.
I thought you were just shooting the bull over there.
No. But we hired a contractor to take over the bookkeeping and we're just checking in to see how that's going.
I know what he's not doing. He's not joining the chamber.
Thanks, Uncle Nick.
I'll talk to him.
Thanks.
Okay.
But yes, for the IDA, he's been very helpful in, fixing my QuickBooks snafus,
Okay.
so.
I need a roll call vote on paying that bill.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
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 Everybody's a yes.
Yes. Got that, Ally?
Sorry about that.
Any new business, old business to cover?
I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
one piece of business. I happen to think about it because I'm going away next week. It won't be here for 6 weeks. And I wonder if we have passed a resolution to vote by phone. I know others are doing that now. County is doing that. We need to be able to.
Warren County is?
Depends on which way you're gonna vote, Nick.
No,
That's what I've heard of.
he was away and we could have taken a vote. We should have.
No.
Huh?
No.
We didn't take a vote.
You usually not allowed to
You're
vote.
subject to open meetings law, so you can't do
You
that.
can't vote even by Skype.
No.
No.
Only if you do teleconferencing, then you have to teleconference from the location that you're at. We have to see you here, and then we have to post the address as the meeting notice. And I guess if somebody would like to attend the meeting where you're located, they,
How about we all come down? Are you talking about just the IDA? Because other places are doing, the library, for example, just changed theirs.
yeah, they're not subject to the requirements of
Yeah,
PAAA.
All right.
That's a great idea, though.
So,
There'd never be anybody here. We'd all be
Yeah,
home.
if you,
Yeah.
Like in the case-
You get,
Yeah, no.
okay, I'll take a move to adjourn, please.
yes.
Moved by Nick, second by Bill. All in favor?
Yeah,
Done?
they wanted out worse than you did, Dan.
No,
So-
It's my first time. I didn't want to make it.
So I want to say, I would really like to say, I'm very disappointed in you guys.